January 28th, the major Fed announcement impacting the money, benefits, and finances of virtually everyone. Let's get into the details. All right, so in just a matter of days here, we're going to be getting a major announcement out of the Fed. And again, it's going to impact all of us yet again, our money, our benefits, our finances, virtually everybody across the entire country. And the messaging that we receive along with this major announcement is also going to be very important, especially with what we've been seeing unraveling within the overall economy over the last several months here. This is going to be very pivotal to see what they actually do here going forward. And obviously, I want to talk through some of the details as far as expectations, why we want to watch the details, and the information the verbiage out of what they say here, along with this major announcement. Let's talk through it a little bit further. So late last year, we did get some interest rate cuts out of the Federal Reserve, right? Again, we talked about that at the time. Very important. Now, why do we care about interest rate cuts? It's more than just interest rates coming down, because you might be thinking, who cares? I don't have any debt. I'm not paying anything on interest. I don't really care if the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, lowers interest rates, or keeps them where they are. It doesn't impact me. Well, here's why I want to point this out, because it actually does impact us, because when the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, it's not just about, well, interest rates are a little bit lower, hooray, let's borrow a bunch of money, or now we have to pay less interest on the debt that we have. It's more than just that. Here's why. They lower interest rates in a softening economic environment. In other words, what I mean is that when the economy is softening, as in it's not nearly as strong as it was, they lower interest rates. When the economy is very strong, it can sustain higher interest rates. That's why they raise interest rates aggressively during a strong economy, because, well, the economy can sustain it, and if they don't raise interest rates, there's going to be too much inflation, too many people borrowing money, and the economy will ultimately overheat. So the whole objective here is to raise interest rates in a very strong economic environment, while the opposite is true in a weakening or contracting economic environment, where the Federal Reserve comes in and they lower interest rates to make the appeal to borrow money, to basically, for businesses, for you and me, consumers, to basically spend more, to borrow more money, and to stimulate the economy further. That's the whole point here. So when the Federal Reserve is coming in and lowering interest rates, whether it's 25 basis points or 50 basis points, which is a quarter or a 0.5% in those instances I just gave you, when they're lowering interest rates meeting after meeting after meeting, what it's really showing us is that the Federal Reserve is concerned about the overall economy, and they're lowering interest rates to get more people out there to borrow money and to spend more money, which ultimately stimulates the economy. That's the whole purpose behind it. So, point being is that not only is the interest rate announcement out of the Federal Reserve here in a matter of days going to be very important to see what are they doing with interest rates. Are they lowering? Are they raising? That's an option too. A lot of people forget about that. That is also an option during this time as we continue to see inflation creeping higher and higher and higher, right? But with that being said, we also want to listen to the verbiage out of the chairman of the Federal Reserve, again, Jerome Powell, and any other messaging that they have, because what they're doing is they're translating to us, what are they seeing with the overall economy? Are they really seeing this massively weakening economy as we've been seeing over the last several months? Are they very concerned about this, and how aggressively do they cut interest rates? Remember, the more aggressive the interest rate cut, well, first off, it's better for you and me if you have any debt like I do, right? Again, if you have any debt on interest rates that are a variable, like credit cards, that's a really big one. It's nasty paying that credit card interest, right? It can add up significantly. But my point being is that the more aggressively that they cut interest rates, the more that they see a weakening economy and a potential economic situation upon us where we might be falling into major economic contraction, major recession coming, therefore they need to cut interest rates more aggressively, if that makes sense, okay? So at the end of the day, even if you don't have any debt outstanding where you're paying interest on it that may be impacted by a lower interest rate, at the end of the day, it does impact all of us because it's all tied to the economy at the same time, and the information coming out of the Fed as far as how aggressively they're cutting or whatever they're doing is just translating back to us what they're seeing with the overall economy. And if the economy crashes and burns, well, guess what? Does that impact you, whether you have debt or not? And again, whether the interest rates cuts or hikes or whatever they do, whether that impacts you or not, at the end of the day, it's all tied to the economy, and that does impact us, because if the economy goes down, what happens? Well, they produce massive stimulus and they pump it out to the people, and everywhere stimulus is provided, okay? So anyway, it's actually very important. Even if you might think, who cares about interest rates? It doesn't impact me. It actually does impact all of us in a pretty big way. Our money, our benefits, our finances. And then remember this much as well. When the economy goes down, they print up all kinds of money, like what we saw back in 2020, 2021. They printed about $6 trillion. Well, when we see those types of events happen, not only do they try to stimulate the economy like crazy, but what else do? They devalue our money. When they print that much money, when they print that many dollars, they devalue the purchasing power of our money significantly. So even though we want stimulus and many people need some kind of financial relief, something like that, when they print all kinds of money like this, at the end of the day, it also devalues our purchasing power significantly. What I mean by that is, you have $100 today and it's worth whatever. It's $100. It buys you $100 worth of goods and services. When they print a couple $1 trillion, that $100 does not buy you nearly what it did prior to the money printing. Does that make sense? Because it's devalued. That's the purpose and why we want to watch all this. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it all impacts all of us to some degree. Anyway, in a matter of days here, on the 28th, we will be getting the interest rate policy announcement, along with the information out of the chairman, Jerome Powell, and what they plan on doing going forward, and what they're seeing within the overall economy. And we know that some of the economic data coming out recently has not been all that great whatsoever, as I've been talking about. Anyway, it's going to be pretty important. I will certainly keep you posted. Want to give you a quick little heads up on what to watch for here.